to the PowerPoint portion of my report. We're going to start with heroin and where it stems from. A little bit of history is opium. The first opioid was derived from the sap of opium poppies. Initially, opium was primarily used by Egyptians and Persians, and then spread to various parts of Europe, India, and also China. And clearly, obviously now, the United States. U.S. physicians used opium as a therapeutic agent for different purposes during the 18th century, such as to relieve pain for cancer patients, menstruation, and childbirth. And it wasn't until the end of the 18th century that physicians came to the realization that opium had extreme addictive qualities. The use of morphine as a treatment for opium addiction was initially well received, as morphine has approximately 10 times the more euphoric effect than the equivalent amount of opium. However, over the years, morphine abuse gradually increased, and they moved away from that. In 1874, heroin was synthesized from morphine, and it wasn't until 1898 when it was produced commercially by the Bayer Pharmaceutical Company. And there were attempts to use heroin rather than morphine due to problems of morphine abuse. However, it became more apparent that heroin was also highly addictive, and eventually was classified as an illegal drug in the United States. And today, heroin is coming into the United States from Southeast Asia, Southwest Asia, Latin America, Mexico. It's all over the place right now, and even China. And heroin, and when it's sold, or when you look at it, it's typically in a light brown powder form, or in a black sticky substance, also known as black tar. And heroin on the streets is known to be mixed with other drugs or substances, such as anything that's white, so sugar, starch, powdered milk, baking soda, caffeine, cocaine, and even more recently and more deadly, fentanyl. And what fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid that is similar to morphine, but it is 50 to 100 times more potent. It is often known to treat patients with severe pain or to manage pain after a surgery. Fentanyl typically comes in a prescription, also comes under these names. I'm not going to try to pronounce them. So if you look on your prescription, they may be named this other than fentanyl. Street names for fentanyl laced with heroin include China Girl, China White, Dance Fever, Friend, Goodfella, Jackpot, Murder 8, TNT, Tango, and Cash. And fentanyl is also often administered via injection. You can come in patch form or in lozenges that you can suck on it. And the fentanyl associated with the recent overdoses are obviously non-pharmaceutical, that are sold in forms of powder. They can be spiked on blotter paper, mixed or substituted for heroin, or in tablet form that can mimic other opioids. When used in the street, people typically swallow or snort, obviously inject, which is typically laced with heroin, or they can put it on blotter paper in their mouths, which is absorbed through the mucous membranes. It has been said that injecting heroin gives the highest level of euphoria due to the drug being directly injected into the bloodstream. Now, there can be a liquid form of heroin, which is made by taking the powder form and mixing it with citric acid, and then heated, which can then go into a syringe and injected under the skin, called a skin pop, which goes into the veins or into the muscles. What you see here on the screen, the tubes of heroin and fentanyl here on the left, the heroin, shows how much heroin you need to possibly overdose. So not much at all. And over here with the fentanyl, you can see that there are just a few granules in there. That's all that would be needed to be mixed with that heroin to cause you to overdose or essentially die. Why is fentanyl so dangerous? Opioid receptors are found in the areas of the brain that control your breathing rate. High doses of the potent your breathing is stopped completely, leading to death. The high potency of fentanyl increases the risk of overdose, especially if a person is using drugs is unaware that the pill or the powder contains the fentanyl. When this is sold in the street, it is deadly in the sense that it's mixed with heroin or cocaine, and the effects are amplified. In the unfortunate event of an overdose resulting from the drug leading to fentanyl, there is a medication that can reverse the overdose. That medication is naloxone, or Narcan, which is an opioid receptor antagonist and is able to reverse the overdose and restore normal respiration. However, it must be administered within minutes of the overdose. Otherwise, unfortunately, it will not work. The impact that heroin has on the brain, we have discussed where and what where heroin has been derived from, and determined that is a substantial global impact on society. But it's also important to explain, actually what it is and how it affects one. People ask, why would somebody want to engage in the use of this drug that has the probability to have such profound negative consequences? Well, the answer to that is because it also, to them, has positive consequences, which is euphoria. Once a person uses heroin, the person has a feeling of euphoria, which is a superficial feeling of well-being or ecstasy. And now we spoke of how you can administer the drug, and here it's telling you snorting, it takes 30 to 120 seconds to get, to kick in. Injection, 10 to 20 seconds, and by smoking it, 5 to 10 seconds. And how long each lasts, I mean, this is, seconds. So it's really all the same when it comes to getting that feeling of ecstasy. It doesn't take much time at all. Heroin, along with other opiates, affect what is known as your pleasure system in the brain. It involves, several brain chemicals and your neurotransmitters that include dopamine and endorphins. And both dopamine and endorphins are naturally occurring chemicals in the brain and can modify the natural process of the brain that uses, that communicates with the rest of your body. The brain and nervous system create the all-encompassing, communication network that affects all aspects of the body's functions, such as emotions and actions. And right now, I'm going to show you pieces of a short video from the coroner from Luzerne County on how heroin has affected their county, which is similar to those around us, and some of their overdose statistics.
It really is an epidemic. I mean, I just showed you in the paper. I mean, every day, I mean, we have a family Bible that's filled. We went to 14 funerals of our son's friends in 1 year. 14. All from addiction. I don't know. They're just dropping like flies. Every day.
When a person dies from an opiate overdose, the heart slows down, the lungs begin working harder and harder to compensate. Fluid builds up in the lungs, and they end up what we describe as drowning in their own fluid. The demographics of the opiate deaths is a broad spectrum. It is 20, 30s, 40s, even into the 50s. It is across the socioeconomic spectrum of Luzerne County. I sense that there is a resolve that things are changing. Maybe things aren't going to be as good as they were, and now people have gradually gone from the corner bar mentality to I'm going to use some drugs to escape the situation that they're in. We were going into 2016 expecting to have 95 to 100 drug deaths. We are now at 129 with 5 results completing to come back to us from the national lab that we use, and we work on a very limited budget. I've been involved in the coroner's office, we will be significantly over our allowed budget. As far as it getting better, I don't see that.
In 2011, the National Drug Control Policy reported that the nation's criminal justice system is a revolving door in regard to the consequences of drug use and is one of the most significant challenges society is currently facing. The Bureau of Justice reported that 18% of the state, federal, and inmates committed crimes such as home invasion, prostitution, theft, domestic violence, all while either under the influence of drugs or on their way to obtain the drug. Beyond criminal actions, the addict will also see an increase in other physical and behavioral symptoms, all due to heroin use, because it takes over your brain. You do not have any more control over your own self and your own mind and your own once this drug enters your system and just takes over your brain. Who is at most risk for heroin addiction? It does not discriminate. But there are some, commonly seen factors of those that have fallen victim to addiction. And as this chart shows, this ends in 2014, so clearly it's a little outdated. But the solid line of drug overdose deaths involving opioids was on the rise back in 2014, and right now it's probably about skyrocketed. But those that are fallen victim to addiction are those who have previously been on prescription opioid painkillers, those that have maybe been addicted to cocaine, without health insurance because you're looking for that fix, you're looking for that want to heal yourself and numb the pain, non-Hispanic whites and males, those addicted to marijuana and alcohol or living in a metropolitan area, and number one, they are in the age range of 18 and 25 years old, which is what we're currently seeing with this heroin epidemic that is currently surrounding us. Now, there are recovery and medical treatments available